don't have to go back that long ago. We couldn't even open up a bank account.
From women in wealth,
like 1960s, 70s, 80s. Like, it's absolutely mad to think about.
To manifesting your millions.
The lesson I wish I had learned sooner myself. You don't want to open up the portal, have all this money flow in and flow out just as quickly.
Laura Tynan, the Witch of Wall Street, is changing the narrative of what it means to be an investor in today's world.
You can be sitting in your sundress, with your sage burning and making your investments. And that is the ultimate sense of female empowerment and how I view it, taking back control of your finances.
This is one conversation you'll most definitely want to cash in on.
It's however you define your abundant, wealthy witch life.
On an all-new Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers, a podcast dedicated to those seeking a more fulfilled and purposeful life through thought-provoking conversation, spiritual exploration, and authentic connections. The intentional movement has begun, and if you found yourself here, you are a part of it. Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers starts now. Hi, Laura. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. This is such a treat today to talk to you and bring these two worlds of finance and wealth and money and woo and spirituality and kind of combine them all together. Things that you don't necessarily always think of going together, except for, I know people talk about abundance mindset or manifestation, but there's just so much more to it. And you have such a background in building wealth and empowering women to have a seat at the table to really stand in their own in their finances. And then also bringing in that wholesome, spiritual, divine feminine aspect. I think it's just so fascinating. So welcome. I'm really, really excited that we get to talk today.
Thank you so much, Courtney. It's such a pleasure genuinely to be here with you.
Well, let's jump in because I was listening before we started this. I was listening to one of your podcasts about going on a money date. And this kind of takes me back to the very first way we started this podcast is getting to know your authentic self and taking yourself on a date to do that. You talk about that being one of the first steps of building your wealth and your relationship with money is going on a money date. So how does that help you understand your finances and combine this, getting to know yourself and your money all at the same time together?
I love that you bring up this conversation because firstly, dating yourself is one of the most important things you can do. Second to dating your money, because here's the thing. We have a relationship with money, whether we realize it or not. And if I was to ask anyone listening, describe your relationship, it would fall under it's complicated, it's distant, it's really intimate, it's fantastic, it's thriving. And the question always is, when was the last time you checked in on that relationship? Just like anyone. You need to be checking in, seeing how it's doing, what's going well, what's not going well. Is it thriving? How can I make this better? Because we are in relationship with this thing called money. And when we begin to see money as this thing that we're in relationship with versus this thing that is the be all end all, describes who I am, my self-worth in this capitalistic world that we're in, we can begin to separate ourselves and actually begin to see where we need to make changes. So exactly as you said, it's step number one on the journey to wealth creation. And so what I advise my wealthy witches, my witchy gang, is to date their money and to make it fun. So initially it might be a weekly money date if you're brand new to this, and it might feel overwhelming to look at a month at once. But ultimately it's once a month, you're sitting down, you're taking an hour or so for yourself, and you can make it fun. I have witches who they do Heka ceremony, they're burning incense, they have their favorite playlist on. And it's time truly as part of your self-care practice, because taking care of your relationship with money, we can view it as part of self-care. Because if our relationship with money is thriving and things with our money is thriving and we're feeling confident and calm and we understand what's happening, our own mental health and well-being is improving as well. So I really invite women to take this time to get to know their money. And so there's a couple of key things that we look at on that money date, which we can go into, of course. But the key thing, even if you leave this episode and take nothing else, is to give yourself an hour at least once a month. Sit down, check in with your money. What is going on with it? Because I hear so many women saying it gives them anxiety to even open up their bank account. They don't necessarily know how much is going in or going out, but somehow it all just kind of works out at the end of the month. And it's, fingers crossed, I hope it's fine. And that may have worked at one point, but it doesn't give you the sense of confidence or empowerment to move forward, to make the decisions you want to make, to plan for your future, to know that I've always got my own back no matter what happens to me. And that's a real sense of empowerment. And it comes down to the core of what we do, which is we're all about female empowerment, but to say that we need to look at financial empowerment, which is, of course, what we're all about. And that's what we focus on. So if you want, we can delve into it. If there's other things you want to explore, of course, we can do that too.
Well, of course, I do want to get into it, but the whole concept of actually giving yourself that space to like look into it, like you said, there's sometimes anxiety around it and fear, and like it's a tricky emotion sometimes. Sometimes you don't want to open up that bank account. You know, I think as women, and I think as people, but as women especially, we're crossing our fingers, hoping everything balances out. And I understand once you get to that wealth space, it gives you the freedom to show up as yourself because you have the freedom to do what you want. But like, you have to take those first steps to get there. So how do you overcome those things like the fear of like literally sitting down and looking at your money? It's not necessarily fun if you're just starting out.
Oh, 100%. And, you know, I share with women about the history we have with money. And it's not, you know, we obviously focus on the woo as well. So we don't want to dwell there. We don't want to put all our focus on, oh, look, woe us, our history. But the reason I do it is rather just to say, look, it wasn't until the 1960s, 1970s that women could open up a bank account in their own name without having a male co-signer. It was something like the 1980s that the women in the US could even get a business loan in their own name. And, you know, even a lot of the products that we looked at around investing, they're all relatively new. So the ability for women to even have the freedom to sit down and open up their own bank account, have the right to have control over their own finances, and to even start building wealth on their own, like we're still only talking about one generation. It's not that long ago. And the reason I share this is for more women just to give themselves a break. It's like, if you don't have your finances sorted, or if you don't know how to invest or build wealth, like, cool, you're amongst many. And it was set up for you not to have that freedom or that confidence. So just give yourself a break. And, you know, if you're feeling anxiety come up, like we can take you through a little tapping session beforehand just to help regulate your nervous system, to chill out. But even beyond that, just to remind yourself, you even sitting down, and if all you get to do is open your bank account and figure out what's been going in and out, that's a massive step forward in itself. And we never like dismiss those smaller milestones either on that journey to wealth creation, because looking at our history, we get to see, oh, I wasn't set up for this to be different. This was actually how it was meant to be for me, but I'm changing that. And I think from that point of view, women can feel really empowered and confident and proud of themselves to be like, you know what? History of women money has been crap. We're writing a new her story, and that's where I'm going to put my focus now. I'm stepping up. I'm moving forward. I'm making changes, even if it's step by step, small milestones along the way. And so just that little mindset shift of like, it's not me. I'm going to lift this shame off me, this fear, this anxiety, all of it, put it somewhere else, wherever it belongs, because it's not on me, and move forward from that place of love for themselves.
So there's a little bit of that like subconscious programming that comes into this generationally, let alone whatever stories that we are adopting from our own upbringing to create our relationship with money. So not only is it like our parents' relationship with money and our family relationship with money, it is like the greater conscious, like subconscious programming, and like not even just your individual subconscious programming. It's like that bigger picture, which even, I mean, I've spoken with other people, another woman who calls herself a witch too. And I said, you know, we had this whole conversation of like the fear of stepping into spirituality and the whole term of witch, because there's like this whole generational like curse with it. You know, we fear that. So like what you're saying is there's like this huge, like almost like a curse, like we're afraid of being burned at the stake if you're a witch type of thing that's like so deeply inbred in us women. And then on top of it, you're going to add in your family dynamics, which just adds so many different layers to the story.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's really interesting actually, because just the other day, someone had written like, oh, the witches are our enemy. And I just had to laugh because I was like, clearly misunderstood what we stand for, which is more about understanding the subconscious mind, how we create a reality around us and how we up level, improve, harmonize that relationship with money that we have. But there's also part of it, you know what, when we look at some of the limitations that have been put on women in the past, there's something for me that's very empowering about bringing women together in circle, you know, in community together, and then to talk about money and to have that, like, yeah, we're going to claim that we're wealthy witches. You know, we're standing in our power, we're connected, we're in tune, and we're actually managing and controlling and building our wealth. Like, for me, that is a real sense of empowerment and standing in that, like, I'm taking back control. I may not have had this before. My ancestors may not have had this opportunity, but I do, and I'm going to own that. So it's a very empowering feeling for how I see it anyway.
Well, is this kind of coinciding with, I know we're in an era of the divine feminine coming in. We're in an era of the rising consciousness. We're kind of breaking through some of those archaic belief systems that at least we have in the Western culture, and not even in the Western culture, I think worldwide. I mean, women have been so pushed down, and there is this rise across all different levels of work and in every different facet of life of the divine feminine coming in and women taking back their power. And this is just, I imagine, another push forward in this.
Absolutely. And the thing is, like, we talk a lot about manifesting and, you know, in the spiritual realms, but I genuinely see investing as probably one of the most divine feminine acts of receiving, even more so than the focus or the emphasis that we put on manifesting, right? Allowing the universe to support us. Because investing, the way I approach it, which is very much long-term investing, set, forget, move on with your life. You don't need to be sitting in front of screens all day. Who has time for that, or who has the interest in that, really? And that's a different type of thing. That's trading anyway. So the way I see investing is like, you're literally allowing your money to go to work for you. You've already received this money from the universe, right? You've manifested into your life. So instead of it just sitting there losing value in a regular savings account or in a bank account, you're now able to invest it, and now it works for you. And you get to move on with your day. And you get to receive that abundance 24/7 without doing anything else. And so I really see investing, the way we approach it now, as something truly very a feminine approach, which is completely counterintuitive to like what you would expect when you go online. And it's so Wall Street bro, and it feels very masculine and aggressive, and like, I gotta beat your chest if you're going to talk about the stock market. But we, obviously take a very different approach. And it's about receiving. You know, you set it, you forget it, you move on with your life, you check in once a month on your money date, and you just allow that wealth to grow and to receive it, which is the ultimate feminine.
Well, so how does that work with manifestation, abundance mindset, and investing? How do they all come together? I mean, I get the like set it and forget it. And so you just are constantly allowing, but like, how do you set that energy? Because at the end of the day, what money is an energy. It's an energy exchange. It's like not even real, you know, but we put so much emphasis on it, and it shapes our life in every which way. I mean, I think it is probably the number one creator of that fight or flight system, aside from like abuse, like a physical abuse. It was like that money aspect of life creates so much stress, so much negative energy. So how do we like create the energy, the positive energy around it? And how do we like let go of like this whole like hold it has on us?
You know, and it's such a fascinating world to discover, because when you think about this thing, which you said so rightly, it's made up. Like money's just this, not even backed by anything anymore. It's just printed. And today it's not even cash. It's just numbers on a screen. But it has such a hold over us. And so often it's like, oh, if I don't earn enough, I'm not as valuable in this world, because it's a very like societal construct of like your value or your worthiness in this world is tied to how much of a producer you have been and how much you are earning as a result. And so when we begin to shift away from that and actually just see money for what it is, which is just this neutral thing that we get to play with, just like, you know, we have air that we breathe, and, you know, Courtney, you can breathe as much air as you want. I'm not going to be freaking out over here being like, we can begin to shift our relationship with it. But in terms of how we bridge the wealth and the woo and bringing in the abundance mindset with it, it starts exactly where we started this conversation, which is money date number one, you know, and oftentimes I've seen the biggest shifts happening just in that money date. It's, opening up your bank accounts, understanding, okay, what's coming in and what's going out. How can I truly take a proper hold of managing my money? And now how do I realize what do I have left so I can actually create a new bucket, a new cauldron for building wealth, right? And when we start to confront money head on, we take its power away of like the fear around it. And so by the time we get to the woo side of things and we're looking at the art, the science of manifestation, of money manifestation, so much work has already happened. So much mindset shifts has happened. Identity shift has happened of, oh, I actually am an investor now. I am good with money. Like money actually is circulating and I can see it. So because that's so much of the work you do around money manifestation, it's, shifting your identity, shifting your energy. But by confronting the 3D world that we all have to play in, that we all get to play in, it does so much of that heavy lifting. So by the time we get to it, it's like, okay, what are you really going for? What are your goals? Okay, then what is the resistance around it? What are the reasons you don't believe that? And now we can play on the mindset side, the nervous system regulation around it. But so much heavy lifting is already done. It just makes the woo so much easier.
So it's really like confronting it to find your power over, not even over it, your power with it, like accepting it, owning it. And that also helps us like take the power for ourselves. And it helps empower us when we can really allow ourselves to truly look at it. But that first step is owning it, looking at it, acknowledging it, stepping into it, and then realizing that, you do have some sort of control over it, because I feel like there's a lot of it that's like, we just feel almost like out of control. Oh, I only make so much. This is all I can do, or my bills cost this. I only have this much left over. We have to like reframe and take the power back.
100%. And even the idea of like to invest or to become a millionaire, to become really wealthy, that I need to have this massive income, like that's backwards as well. It's actually, this is why I can't emphasize, and I love that we talked on the money date starting number 1, like it doesn't actually matter how much you make, it's how much you keep and how much you're setting aside to grow is what makes the difference. And so when we take back control, because again, when we're looking at money, for anyone who's ever just like had a challenge with it or felt any way less than in the relationship with money, it's to remember that if we look at the financial industry, there's no terminology, there's no conversations happening that make it feel accessible, right? They're very male, masculine dominated conversations, even just in the language, and they're very excluded. And if I wasn't already in this world, if I hadn't studied finance and all these different things, I would even look at these YouTube videos and these training courses and find it very intimidating. But when we start to just take baby steps towards it, and this is why we create communities for women to come together. So they're like, oh, there's other women doing this. It's okay. I can move forward and I'm supported on this journey, that we can create those inner shifts as well of like, I am in control of my money.
So how does it work though? So you're talking about investing and holding on to it as a way to build wealth. Whereas everything I've ever heard about manifesting money or an abundance mindset is actually like putting it out there continuously to like, if you have $1, break it into 4 quarters and go give a quarter to 4 different people on the street because there's someone that needs that more than you. And that money's going to come back to you. Like that's, I know on a very small level. It's, I haven't been a bit, math is, words are my thing, not necessarily numbers. So that's an easy one for me to say. But there is that whole concept of putting it out there so it comes back to you, but you're talking about holding on to it. So how does that work?
Yeah. So the reason we also bridge the spirituality with the strategy and the 5D and the 3D is that oftentimes the narrative around manifesting money can be a little bit backwards. And I think some people can get quite confused with it, in the sense of people saying, if you want to become a millionaire, you got to live as the millionaire today. You're going to turn up to that person. What would they be doing? How would they be living? And so I've seen a lot of people run up credit card debts, get themselves into really financially tricky situations, invest a lot of money into things that they think is going to be their quick fix solution to that path. And the reality is that, yes, we can play in the 5D and all that manifestation magic, but we live in a 3D world. And this is the challenge I see in spiritual communities, is that the 3D piece is really left out of it. And this is why we're bridging these gaps, because I can't even tell you how many women I meet who are like, I was on the 5D and I'm now like, 30, 40, 50 grand in debt and I don't know what to do. And now I can't manifest so well because I'm stressed as over here. Right. So we need to merge them together. And so when we're manifesting, oh my God, live that life as a multi-millionaire all you want, but do it energetically. Like go to the open home. Like when you're visualizing, when you're meditating, live into those energies, turn up as you think the person would. But for God's sake, don't be spending like that person. You've got to still manage your money in this 3D world. And, it's a lesson I wish I had learned sooner myself, because it's so easy to get caught up on that narrative of like, if you want it bad, you got to push yourself and believe it's coming tomorrow. But we have to make sure our belief systems are upgraded to that level first before we start spending and putting ourselves into financial stress and distress. And we can't manifest from a place of tightness, from a place of worry or fear, because I've just put myself into all this debt. So this is why I focus on the 3D first. Let's get your finances and sorted first. Let's know exactly what's happening with that. Let's set up your investments so your money's working for you. And then let's play in the space of opening up this portal of greater abundance, right? See different ways that we can attract money into your life. But do that as the last step in the journey, which is the whole, it's a 360 journey. It's a continuously repeating thing. But we can't just look at manifesting and spending and forget that, yes, we are spiritual beings, but we chose to have a physical experience. And so we're bound by this physical realm to some extent. And, we can manifest all we want, but we're still, the credit card debt is still there. It's still there. You can't run away from that. And so it's an unfortunate reality of, a lot of clickbait. It's easy, fun TikTok reels. They're the ones that can get a lot of views. If I say, spend all this money, you got to, invest to your edge and really push yourself. Like, yeah, but manage yourself. Take care of yourself financially in this world, please. And don't fall for that trap. Like, money date, invest, manifest. Let's do it step by step, right? So that you're safe as well.
Well, I mean, that is huge. That is absolutely huge, because that is what everyone says. You have to be that millionaire. You have to put yourself in that, show up as that person. And that is one thing I know I've struggled with, and I know a lot of people struggle with, is kind of like, how do you feel that? Because I know it comes from a place of feeling, of being in that space. But how do you feel that if you're not in that space? So you do have to take care of like the reality, the 3D world that we are living in, to be able to give yourself the security to dream, to feel, to show up as that. Because in that fight or flight state, which we can, going back to, is like, how do you embody those feelings to allow you to manifest if you're internally just like, oh my goodness, how am I going to make my rent today?
Exactly. And the funny reality too, and I spent a long time working in finance, and I got to work with multimillionaires, a couple of billionaires. They're the ones who will negotiate everything. They're the ones who don't walk around trying to show off that they're rich. They are prudent with their money. They will have every incentive and every structure set up to shelter their money from tax in the most legally efficient way possible. They are the ones who mind their money the most. They are very aware of this 3D world. And so they're so aware of it, and they have such a good grip of it that, of course, it flows because their relationship is so strong and solid. And the flip side of it is, I think, what can sometimes be projected on social media and online is that, to be wealthy, to turn up wealthy means I got to show it. But that's like, I'd rather put my money to work so I become wealthy than spend my money to look rich. And that's a really different type of person. The person who's like, I got to keep spending to look rich and get the new car and get the home and the brands and all this stuff. Like, fine if that's your vibe, but just know, unless you're doing that for yourself, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Versus the person who's like, I'm going to put my money to work for me and build wealth and spend my money in accordance with my values and what I actually want to do, not what I think I need to project to the external world so that they think I'm successful financially, because that's what we see it as.
So we really have it backwards. All these things that people are saying online or on social media. Oh, you just spend it. It'll come back to you. It's going to happen. We really do need to take that more grounded approach to owning it in this reality. And then we will start to feel it naturally within ourselves, which will attract in more.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, one of the most core, basic, effective manifestation tools is gratitude. You know, just a place of abundance already, grateful for what I have. So genuinely feeling a place of gratitude and abundance without having to spend a penny. Like anybody can do that for free. And one of my very early teachers who was teaching about the science of manifestation, like, get your journal out, write down what you're grateful for. It went back to the basics. But because it's so commonly known now, oh, gratitude journal, it's like eye roll, give me the juicy stuff. It's like, no, actually, that's it. Get into that place of abundance and gratitude for all that you have and feel the abundance of love, of relationships, of health, all these different things. Going out, putting yourself in debt or overspending or stressing your relationship with money, or, you know, that narrative is just really toxic, and it's just pushed by people who maybe were led to believe that that's the way to do it. And so they need to tell other people that's the way to do it to justify that they're doing it. And now they need to make more money because maybe they haven't managed it well. Right. So, yeah.
I almost feel like it might be fleeting, that approach is kind of like, it might work in the immediate. It might work for a minute, but it's not going to be sustainable. And I think one word that you just used, which is really big, is genuine. Like having that genuine gratitude, having that genuine safety and feeling about money, just genuinely feeling it, because manufacturing your feelings around it is not sustainable.
No, 100% not. Like the universe knows. Like we attract what we are. We can say anything we want, but like, how are you genuinely feeling about things? And again, it's why I come back to the 3D. Like I can say I'm a millionaire, but if every time I get a notification from my bank or my credit card or whatever, and I'm so internally stressed because, as you referred to, that fight or flight has been triggered, how am I manifesting from that place? Like, it doesn't matter how many affirmations you say, your nervous system is regulated to stress, which again, it's why we go back to 3D first, then let's play in the 5D. If we do it the other way around, and this is the other flip side, I've had women come into my program who are like, after just the money date module, like step 1, saying, last year I made $250,000, I didn't even realize it, and I have nothing to show for it. So amazing manifester, but terrible manager of money in the 3D world. And so that's not ideal. You don't want to open up the portal, have all this money flow in and flow out just as quickly. So again, we've got to focus step 1, 3D, manage your money, know how to make it work for you so it can be your servant. You're not a servant to it. And then let's play. Like manifestation's fun. It's, expensive and it's so awesome and it works. But let's just really take care of you first. And it's the message. It's like, we've got to get away from this. Like, let's portray that we're rich and spend frivolously and it doesn't matter, and rack up insane credit card debts just to put out this perception of ourselves. It's like, no, that's so toxic and so destructive. Let's actually manage your money. Let's see what you really value. Like, what's important to you, Courtney, and what's important to me is going to be different. And we've got to spend and circulate our money in accordance with our values and what is right for us. Like, what kind of life, how valuable would it be, or how fulfilling would it be if we both went and bought the same things all the time just to put out this projection to the world? It would be so unsatisfying and so unfulfilling. So yeah, back to the basics first.
We just really can't. You can't. Energy doesn't fool. You can't fool the universe. And I think that's where everything comes back to in spirituality, is back to those basics. Like, we really have to form that platform. We have to create that foundation, those basic tools that we tend to throw by the wayside for all the flashy or even the things of the moment, like abundance mindset, manifestation mindsets, and that's great. But if we're not managing it and we're not really treating it how it should be, it's not going to be lasting. So we've kind of talked about step 1. What is step 2?
So if step 1 is understanding like what's happening with your money, so getting personal with your personal finances, step 2 then is understanding the financial markets. So I would say never invest in something you don't understand. So before we start looking at opening up an investment account and putting your money to work, I really want women to understand what they're investing in. And there's 2 reasons. It's first to realize that they can do it themselves. And secondly, so that they can never have the wool pulled over their eyes. Now, they're never going to be in a situation where some advisor or some person who's trying to convince them that they're going to be better at managing it can talk them into believing that. Because the financial industry has its own language. You know, we probably should have had a course in that when I was studying finance, of just the terminology that is in the finance world, because it's different. They talk bears, bulls, corrections, all these different terms, and they're just made seem complex. So step 2 is understand the financial markets. A lot of people that I meet, the women I work with, think it moves like a roller coaster, up and down, sporadic. It's terrifying. I don't know what's going on. It doesn't. It moves in cycles and seasons. There's a summer, there's a winter. We know, like, and the analogy I always use with the financial markets is like, in the summertime, which, you know, we're kind of just about leaving now. Yeah. Would you look outside and be like, oh my God, the sun is shining. You got your bikini on or your sundress, and be like, it's so beautiful, clear skies. Winter is never coming. So I might as well throw out all my winter wear. You know, I don't need it anymore. Of course not. You wouldn't do the reverse in wintertime, ditch all your summer gear. It's like you're in summer and it's blue skies and everyone's happy and positive and optimistic, but you know winter's coming and it might be darker and a bit colder and people might be a little bit more down, or the energy is going to change. And it's the same with the financial markets. And what happens is that we're in a bull run. Things are optimistic. You'll see the news. Oh, everything's up, 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 buy, bull run, bull. And then things begin to change. Winter begins to set in and things start to go down. And then all the media is the exact same thing. Mainstream media is like, sell. This is the worst ever. Pessimism. It's the worst it's ever been. It's never going to turn around. And it's fear, right? It's pushing all this fear out. And people start to sell because they're like, oh my God, I've lost my money. I see the market going down. I'm losing. And again, it's because they don't understand what's happening. And that's the biggest risk, is to invest in something you don't understand. And so what I share with women is like, when the market's going down, you haven't lost a penny. You've only lost if you've sold out of fear. So just know it's winter. That's cool. You can continue to invest as you did last month, because you've now got it's like a Black Friday sale. Things are cheaper to buy. So it's okay. Continue to invest. We're investing for the long term. We're not trading daily. And then summer will come again. And we'll continue to do the same thing. But summer, winter, it's these cycles that happen. And so people don't understand it. And it's heartbreaking when you see, because they sell when we're in a bear and things are down, because they're fear-led. And media does a great, job at really pushing that narrative. And no one's educated most people. It's not taught in school. Most families, my family didn't talk about this stuff. And people end up losing a lot of money. And then they step out and they go, financial markets, super risky. Stock markets, super risky. Never invest. And they probably pass that on to their kids, or they've learned that from their parents, or whatever it is. And so they've stepped out of the game of building wealth or making their money work for them. And so they stay in this cycle of always having to work for money. So step 2 is, let's understand exactly what you're investing in, because I want to ensure the women I work with are empowered to do it themselves. Right? I could do it for each one of them, but no, that doesn't get us anywhere. I want to show you how to fish, right? Yeah. And here's a fishing rod. Here's how you fish and how you're going to fish for the rest of your life, long after we finished working together, for the rest of your life, because money is going to be in your life for the rest of time.
So where do we go? I mean, because I think as women, we are just prone to turning towards the men in our life for these answers. I mean, that narrative is there for a reason. We'll look to our husbands, we'll look to our spouse, our partners, we'll look to our dad or our parents, for these ideas of like how to learn, where to invest, what to do. And I feel like everyone has like their knowledge and they become experts in it. But like, how do we take back that power for ourselves? Like, where do we go to begin? Because not all of us are going to take economic courses. I mean, numbers for me are big and scary. It's not something, I always say it, and maybe it's a narrative I've told myself. I'm a writer. I was better at calculus than any other type of math because there was so much word based. Knowledge for me, my mind works in that way. So like, as women, how do we really like embrace this knowledge, and where do we go to begin to learn?
So this is actually one of the key beliefs as well that I hear. It's like, I'm no good at maths. I can't do this. Like, this is too much. So if you can open up a bank account you can pretty much invest. You have the same skill set that we need. And so again, it's made feel really complex for a reason. But think about it, right? And this is really what we're getting to in The Witch of Wall Street, combining wealth and woo. What happens if a person can think for themselves, is connected to their own power, can attract in opportunities, manifest, magnetize, and they're financially empowered? So they have their own money. Now, is that person someone who's easily to be controlled? Or is that someone who may question things, who may step up and say, actually, I'm going to do things my way? Right? So where on the spectrum does that person fall? So again, there's a reason that these things aren't as mainstream as we would like them to be, that it's not taught in school systems, that it's not widely available yet. And thankfully, things are changing. Like, there's so many other women I see in my space who are teaching financial education. I think it's amazing. But thankfully, like, it's becoming more accessible for women. But again, this narrative, like, and even the narrative, like, oh, girls aren't as good at maths and numbers as boys. Like, well, that's all just BS anyway. But you don't need math skills, actually, at all. You know, if you can open up a bank account, as I said, you can open up an investment account. If you can follow, okay, this is step by step by step what you need to do, which if you're a functioning human being in our world, I presume you can, then you can invest. And again, it's the misinformation in the sense of it's being made seem complex. If you look at how do you invest and you go online, it's the coloring, it's the language, it's the representation. Like, you have no idea how hard it is. When I was putting things together, when I put in like woman investor, like, it's just man after man in suit and all the screens. Like, there's just such a portrayal of what we think it is, which is totally different from what actually it is, which is you can be sitting in your sundress, you know, with your sage burning and making your investments. You know, we break that stereotype as well of what an investor looks like. But in terms of where do you go, I mean, as I said, like, our company is one that's sharing this information, that's educating women. If people don't vibe with the wealth and woo thing and the witchy thing, that's cool. Like, there's so many other amazing women in the space, but it is more accessible and more readily available, thankfully. But at the same time, only about 20% of women are still investing. You know, there's still a massive way of education, awareness. And again, why I'm so grateful to be on your show, sharing this, because the awareness piece of even women saying, oh, this is even available to me. I don't need tons of money to get started. No, you could start with £100. You're good. You know, I don't need to be amazing at maths. Nope, you don't need any math skills to invest. It's completely male dominated. Well, just the portrayal of it, yes, but to be an investor, it's all good. You know, money doesn't discriminate, thankfully. It doesn't care what race you are, religion, background, age, whatever. It will work for you just the same as it works for anyone else. So there's these beliefs and misconceptions around investing that we're changing. So, you know, you can always ask me for guidance, direction, and if we're not the right people for you, then we can let you know who else might be, you know.
But it really does feel like it's just a fear-based controlling atmosphere, you know, that the powers that be, whoever we've anointed as the bearers of money and wealth, are keeping the majority of us under this fear-based control, and women especially, so that we don't step into our power and feel capable of actually harnessing it and owning this money and owning this energy, which can allow us to really step into who we truly are, which is the essence of this podcast, is being able to step up and say, this is me, and have no outside constraints or strappings or anything saying that you're not allowed to show up as you are. And when you can find that wealth, and when you can find that power of that energy, it gives you the platform to say, no, I'm going to do this my way. Like you said, I can do it in my sundress with my sage, and I can own that power part of me.
100%. And to be all that we want to be in this world, we need money as well. You know, that can. And even if someone listening here is in a dynamic, they're like, well, actually, my partner is the key breadwinner and I chose a more traditional role and I'm staying at home, maybe I don't have my own income. That's cool too. It doesn't mean you're now out of the game of money, you know. And it's also about breaking down that narrative of like, it's just the man's job to mind the money and women have no say. Like whatever the dynamic is, whether you're single or in a relationship or you're the breadwinner, he is, she is, whatever the situation, you know, still always be an active part, and you have every right to be an active part in managing the money together, right? Never put yourself in a place where you can be financially controlled or manipulated. You know, even love and all that is wonderful, but let's have the money sorted. And so money in relationships is another topic, I know, but I just also had to touch on it in the sense of, you know, I still see there's a lot of women I work with who are in more traditional, you know, relationships like that. And it's to really encourage them and support them. And was having those conversations of, it's not okay that you just get to spend what you want or you get to manage the money and I don't. Like, I want equal share in this and equal understanding and management of this. Because what if the worst happens for us or we separate or whatever? I don't want you to be able to move on plain sailing with all your money and your finances in order, and I have nothing or I have no clue what's happening. I want to be just as financially empowered. So it's like shifting those narratives regardless of your setting as well. Side note. But yeah.
Well, do you think society is afraid of women actually owning this and having this power? Because it really does feel like it's the money makers of the world are men, and they're trying to, it's not even men against women, and it's not some big feminist rant, but it really does feel like it's everything is rigged against women. And the more we step into this power, the more control seems to try and come in to keep us in our place.
Yeah, I mean, yes, to the extent of, you know, the witches was the biggest gender side. Like Lisa Lister writes so beautifully in her book, Witch. When I was reading that, I was so shocked. How did I never learn about this in history class? You know, I never came across this. I thought witches were kind of just this Halloween make-believe story.
Right.
It was this massive gender side of literally clearing out, and not just women, but predominantly women who were powerful, who were revered in their communities, who were connected to these mystical powers, which was intuition, you know, being in connection with the cycles of the moon and understanding how to be midwives and different gifts that women have. So of course that's terrifying. You know, it goes back to the roots of Christianity, and I was brought up in Ireland, Catholic, you know, through and through, but we didn't get access to this information, of course. But, you know, even that whole narrative around putting women against each other, you know, screening, literally eliminating women who were powerful. Of course, that has its play on silencing women, making it really scary to step up, to speak out. There's a reason that women only just recently got financial control, like 1960s, 70s, 80s. That is so insanely recent. Like, it was shocking when I was reading this back. I had to double, triple check all of these. I was like, no way. I was like, this is like, it's absolutely mad to think about, but it's the reality. So if the question is, do we think that the bigger powers at play are trying to stamp out women becoming financially empowered? Well, of course. We don't have to make up some conspiracy theory around it. All we have to look at is, well, what actually happened with the so-called witches, right? Why were they demonized? And then what has been happening with the history of women and money in terms of women getting rights to financial access? And we don't have to go much further just to say, well, that's obviously, there's a reason behind that. And I come back to it, like, and let's just look at women, but an independent woman who can be independent of thought and independent in finances, like, how easy is she to control? And do those powers that be, like, want that? But again, we don't even need to go down those rabbit holes. We just need to go, if I want to express myself so fully into the world and live my life authentically to who I am, money is a part of that. And whether I choose on the path to be my own independent income earner, or whether I'm in a situation where my partner is that, I still get that right. And there's still ways to manage your money and still become financially independent and build wealth regardless. It's just not as complicated as they want us to believe.
It's crazy that it wasn't that long ago. I mean, I was born in the 80s. Like, it's just like mind blowing to me. Just like, that just was not that was in my lifetime. I mean, it's crazy. It is crazy, but it is also crazy to think how far we have come, because we have made huge strides. And that's not to say like, oh, woe is me, we're just so oppressed, because we're not. We have the tools and we have the opportunities, and it is more acceptable. So what do you see society looking like as more and more women step into this power and own their place?
Oh, and I'm so glad you made that shift as well, because it was how I started the whole conversation looking back at women in history. It's not to say woe was me. It's not to, pull out the burning forks or whatever they call it. All right, let's go on a rampage against men and against the patriarch and all this. It's just, this is the reality of what it has been, but we have the right to change how we want that to look. And a big part of that, of challenging, if you want to call it the patriarchy, or if you want to say the history of how women collectively have been controlled, it's about taking back your own control. And a big part of that, as you said, is living authentically to yourself, taking back control of your finances, and moving forward in a way that you're like, even if my income isn't where I want it to be, or even if my finances are nowhere near where I want them to be, I'm sitting down for a money date. I'm going to get over that fear of even looking at what's going on. And that's already a step forward. Okay, now I'm going to figure out financial markets. Okay, now I'm going to look at actually, how do I invest my money? And it might be £100 this month, and that's all I can put aside. But you've now become an investor. You're taking back your power. You're doing something that a couple of decades ago was not available for you. And that for me is like so empowering. And that is the ultimate sense of female empowerment and how I view it. Taking back control of your finances.
I love what you just said. I am now an investor. It doesn't take a fortune to be an investor. And the more we can say, I am now an investor, or I am an investor, then we start that's where that manifestation comes in. That's where that energy comes in. That's where we're rewriting our stories and reprogramming ourselves with that whole I am statement. I know it's been talked about, but like, when you actually even say $5, you invest. I think there's programs out there where it's like you can just invest your loose change, hook it up to your bank account and it just goes automatically. Okay, I spent 95 cents here, 5 cents will go straight into your investment account. You're an investor. And that allows you to believe it.
It is. And again, we tie it back to take care of the 3D first, because it does so much of the heavy lifting for when we look at the manifestation work of shifting identity, shifting your mindset, because then you don't have to believe and try and affirm, oh, I'm managing my money. Money flows to me. I am wealthy. You can see it and it's there. It's done. And I have to share this story. It was, we were wrapping up one of my programs recently and we did a round of EFT tapping together. And so I invited the women to all take a round. And one of them started and she was like, started tapping. She's like, I am an investor. And the whole group was like, I am an investor. And you could just see collectively this sense of like, oh, that's actually real now. And that shifts so much. Those I am statements, but it's I am based on, oh, I actually am.
Yeah.
This shifts how I now see myself in relationship with money completely.
Yeah. I think the bigger picture of what you've opened up for me today, and hopefully our listeners, is when we talk about spirituality, so much is focused on, like you said, that 5D world, the energetic world, the quantum leaps, the making these big strides. But it's like when we talk about bringing your head and heart in congruence with one another, we also need to bring the 3D and the 5D together. They have to work together, at least in the way society and the life we're living now works. We have to actually work with them together. It's our head and our heart. They got to come together. The 3D and the 5D have to come together for us really to manifest, to exist in that 5D world. You still have to have that 3D space.
100%. And like ultimately we chose to be here, right?
Yeah.
Whether we want to believe that or not, like we chose to incarnate in these bodies and here we are in the 3D world and we have this thing called money, whatever relationship looks like now with it, and we have to interact with it for the rest of our life. So let's work on that relationship just like we would on any other and ensure that we're setting ourselves up to live our most abundant life, however you define that, right? Not what some magazine or some other social media account's going to tell you what you need to do to be rich or to be successful. It's however you define your abundant, wealthy, rich life.
This is just such practical spiritual advice, bringing in those two worlds. So as an investor, can you give us any tips on like what's going on now in the world financially? Like, where do you suggest? I mean, I know you said don't sell because it's down, or, you're getting your Black Friday sale. Like, what would be like a takeaway, financial tip you could share?
You know what the beautiful thing is about investing for the long term is it doesn't even matter. The markets can be up, they can be down, we can be in a depression, a recession. Apple may have just lost a whole load of value off their balance sheet, and that's okay. it doesn't matter. We're going to continue to invest because we invest in a way called index fund investing. So we're investing in the collective, in a basket, and in a really diversified way. So up or down or sideways, it's good. We're still investing. We're still getting our diversification. We're getting the exposure we need, and our money is going to continue to grow over the long term. So this is why it's cool. It's like we don't need to be, this is coming from someone who's an accountant, right? I mean, we can look at the P&L statements and that's fine, but we don't need to. Right? There's a simpler way to do it. And any other way, if we're trying to figure out the next hot stock or the next tip or when we should invest, when should we get in, when we should get out, that's gambling, that's trading. It's very different to investing and building wealth. And there's a place for both of them, but you just got to be really aware of what you're doing. Like we can all make a lot of money and go to Vegas, but we can also lose a lot of money. It's a bet, right? And that's, you have to understand the risk that's coming with it. It may pay off and we may think we're amazing and really talented at it, but then the next day it might actually just have realized, oh, it was luck and I've lost. That's one thing. We're talking about investing long-term, building wealth. It's slow, it's steady, it's unsexy. I'm not going to say you're becoming a millionaire overnight. Those get rich quick schemes are going to make sure that you get broke just as fast. If they're promising you crazy returns, just understand that you're guaranteed crazy risk levels as well. And so some people are willing to take that, and that's their decision. For the majority of people, if you want to build wealth, do it slow and steady, do it over the long term, and do it in a way that's, you know, risk managed and diversified, and doing that through index funds, through ETFs is one of the best ways to go about doing that. So it doesn't really matter what's happening in the market from that point of view.
So we're looking at investing, not trading. Trading is more of the gambling, which can be fun and can be great, and you can win, you can lose, but we need to start. You would recommend starting with that long-term investment. And then when you have the extra, if you want to get fancy and trade and this and all that, more power to you. But let's build that base with the investing.
Yeah, so the thing with the trading, it's not that I have an issue with like investing in individual stocks. It's just, you know, equally my background is financial restructuring. So I used to work with all these, you know, what were once really successful companies who've now gone through some challenge and they're about to go bankrupt or be liquidated or some issue. And so we've had to go through that whole process of trying to turn them around and see shareholders lose massive amounts of money. The challenge with investing in individual stocks is if that company goes, your money goes with it. There's unlikely going to be any return to you at all as a shareholder. You're kind of bottom of the list in terms of distribution of funds. When you invest in an index fund, if a company goes down, you take that company out, it's replaced with a new company. You're good. Your money continues to work for you. And so, you know, if you want to trade in individual stocks as fun and you want to see like what happens because it might give you a bit of a buzz, cool, go buy your Apple, go buy your individual Amazon, and that's fine. But just understand that there will be a fear that comes with it when you see that stock go down and 20% gets wiped off or something like that. And the fear that comes up of what if that doesn't turn around? If Apple goes, which might sound like ridiculous to say today, but we've said that about companies in the past who no longer exist. If that company goes, your money goes with it, and that's fine, but you have to be aware of that risk. Invest in index funds and ETFs. It's like, it's easy to do. It's easy to approach. You can do it once a month. You don't have to be tracking what's happening with board meetings and what's happening with their valuations and where it's going up or it's going down. If you want to do that, fine. But there's a much easier way and there's a much more sensible way to go about building your wealth that is less stress and much more risk averse, and it's more diversified, and the statistics and the research show it still gives really, really solid returns over the long term.
Talk about managing your energy and your mindset around wealth. I mean, if you can give yourself the security of knowing your money is consistently working for you and you're not having that fear-based what if, the highs and lows, I mean, it just creates that energy of safety, security, abundance constantly flowing to you versus that high and low that can come with that gambling, which, I mean, I enjoy gambling just like the next person. So, you know, you get those highs and you get those lows, but you have to curate the energy around the money that you want to create the life you want.
Yeah. Or, you know, put separate money aside. You have like, this is my money I'm going to build my wealth with. This is my trusted money that I'm putting aside for my future. And this might be my play money. Yeah. Like if you want to buy some crypto and, you know, I've bought crypto, I'm sure many people have, and you want to play with it and see what happens. But if it goes to zero, it doesn't matter. Cool.
Yeah.
But you don't want to do that with your life savings. You don't want to do that with your pension. You don't want to do that with, this is what's going to make sure that I don't have to work if I don't want to in the future, that I'm good. You don't want that money out there on the, susceptible to whether a company performs or not, or whether a coin goes up or not. You want it diversified well, and ensuring that, in 30 years time, like, how different is the world going to look? We don't have to go back that long ago. We couldn't even open up a bank account. In 30 years, how different is the world going to look? I want the safer bet to know it doesn't matter really what companies come and go, what changes happen, what impact AI happens, because it's invested in such a way that I'm still going to benefit from the growth over the long term. If Apple's gone, Amazon's gone, cool, I'm fine. My future life savings are not impacted by that. So it's really, really key, as I said earlier, before we invest in something, we know what we're investing in, which is why I harp on about the financial markets and understanding them, so that if you are trading and you want to do individual stocks, that you're not just sold in because someone says, I can get you a massive high return and it sounds really sexy. It's like, you want to play in that world? That's so cool. You do you, right? You're an adult. You get to do whatever you want to do in this world. Yeah. But just know what you're doing, and don't bet your life savings, your future savings, or your future wealth in that. Just do it in a way that you can be sure that when you get to that age, or when you get to the time where you need it, it's going to be there for you. How funny though. This is all, it's all just monopoly money. It's not even real, like we talked about. Like, we're putting so much importance about it, and it's like rules our life. But when we really drill it down to the basics, it's like, it's not even real. It's not backed by gold. It's not backed by anything precious. Like, it is, like you said, numbers on a computer. It's barely even printed at this point. It's just how mind-blowing that we allow this to rule so much of our life, when it's just some made up thing. Yeah, and that's the approach we take. It's like, manage it, improve a relationship with it, let it go to work for you, and then move on with your life. Like, I don't want any woman who comes into my group to be saying like, oh, I got to spend all these hours in front of a screen managing. Like, no, like, get on with your life, enjoy, live your best life, express yourself into the world and do all that. Just have your money work in the background for you, and that's all we need to do. But if we want to go down that rabbit hole, which we won't do today, but it's like, what's even real anyway? Like, we're all just energy, money's just energy, our bodies are just energy, they're not even like solid, so it's all just, let's just have fun. It's crazy, right? It's crazy, right? So, you have such a depth of knowledge on this subject. How can we work with you? Where can we find you? Where can we follow all your tips and resources, all your good stuff? Oh, well, thank you so much. And for anyone who wants to find out more about the Wealthy Witch way to building wealth, the Witch of Wall Street is our company. And so we have several different programs, but you can find all about them on lauratynan.com. So we have the Witches of Wall Street Live, which is a live experience we take women through in 7 weeks to go from zero to investor. And we mix in the woo. And then we have online programs as well. People want to do it in their own time if women want to go through that experience at their own pace. But I hang out on social media in terms of social media on Instagram the most, and I can share that with you. It's at witch_street, so you can come say hi there. And you have your podcast as well. I have my podcast as well. Thank you. Great PR rep. Thank you so much. Witch of Wall Street. Yes, I do. Which is where we talk about the wealth and in a lot more detail. I love it. Thank you, Laura, so much for the conversation and shedding so much light on this. It's a topic. It's a taboo topic that's difficult to understand sometimes and comprehend. But I love that you're making it more accessible to all of us. And I just really appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you for talking with me. Thank you so much, Courtney. And thank you for this platform to share our message as well. I truly, truly appreciate it. And that's it for today's Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you, Laura Tynan, for joining me and talking all about the Witch of Wall Street and how as women, we can change our story with money so that we can learn to empower ourselves and really show up authentically as ourselves. Because in this world, money is what allows us the freedom to be us. If you want to get in touch with Laura or work with her company, I'll put all the information of how to find her in the show notes. And as always, you can find Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers and Intentional Media on our website at CourtneyMyers.com, where you'll find books, courses, and everything else. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.